Quake has shaken a northern region in Chile. The U.S. Geological Survey says the quake was centered in Putre, near the border with Bolivia. Some buildings have been damaged, but there are no reports of injuries. Just over a year ago, a magnitude 8.8 quake in central Chile killed more than 500 people. Rio de Janeiro's world-famous carnival is just hours away. But it won't be quite the same for a few of Rio's samba schools. They spent all year building elaborate floats and costumes, only for a huge fire to destroy the lot. AlJazeera spent time with Elizabeth Santana, who works at one of those schools, and this is her story.
Meu nome é Elizabeth.
My name is Elizabeth Santana.
Quando eu estou sem o que fazer,
when I have nothing to do in the sculpture department, I come over here to this float decoration section.
eu venho para cá, porque o momento em que você está sem fazer nada,
when you have nothing to do, you go help others, because those very people will in turn help you when you really need it.
Se estiver precisando, vai lá e vai te ajudar. Agora, esse ano, eu estou vendo muita união entre os empreiteiros.
This year, I have seen lots of solidarity between the different departments.
E assim, essa tragédia serviu.
This tragedy helped us come together for the school.
A maioria das coisas.
Most of the things were finished.
Eu entrei num desespero tão grande quando eu vi as janelas estourando.
When I saw the windows shattering, I was overcome. The windows of our workshop exploding really was shocking because I thought about all my friends inside.
Nosso trabalho todo,
Not to mention losing all of our work. There were lives to worry about inside, so I was panicking. The things that we were building over several months were lost in the fire in seconds. There is no explanation. It hurts even to think about it. We still will have our parade because we need to show that Portela is not just a school, it's a family. We are all in this together, working for the school. It's not just us. Portela has a long tradition. It's a big league school which goes back a long time. We have to parade no matter what. Everything that you work hard at, which you make an extra effort at, is much more satisfying when you see the final result.
One of the most traveled space shuttles, Discovery, is getting ready for its final journey after nearly 3 decades. Astronauts bade farewell to the rocket ship as they sealed its hatches with the International Space Station on Sunday. Discovery will fly a victory lap around the lab for picture-taking before heading back to Earth. It's scheduled to land on Wednesday. Will be retired later this week. Let's take you through the headlines now on Al Jazeera. These are the latest pictures of fighting in the Libyan town of Misrata. Opposition fighters say they've repelled an attack by government forces, including tanks and artillery. At least 18 people were killed in the fighting. Meanwhile, Libyan state television has broadcast an appearance by Muammar Gaddafi before crowds in Tripoli's Green Square. Pro-government supporters have been rallying in the capital on Sunday. A British Special Forces team captured by Libyan opposition fighters outside Benghazi has been released. They boarded the HMS Cumberland in Benghazi port on their way out of Libya. The soldiers were reportedly part of a diplomatic mission seeking to make contact with anti-Gaddafi forces. Security forces in Cairo have fired into the air in an attempt to disperse protesters trying to get access to the Ministry of Interior. They were attempting to seize sensitive documents linked to the Mubarak regime, which they fear may be destroyed. Well, an Egyptian cabinet reshuffle announced on Sunday will see 3 new faces in key posts. The Prime Minister's office says it has appointed Nabil Al-Arabi as the country's new foreign minister. He's a former judge at the International Court of Justice and was a permanent representative to the UN. Meanwhile, the new interior and justice ministers have pledged to fight corruption. Pro-democracy protests are continuing in Bahrain's capital, Manama. Police with riot shields stood behind one entrance to Qudaybiya Palace, where the Prime Minister has his office. Other protesters remain camped out at Pearl Roundabout, a focus of the demonstrations. Saudi Arabia is reported to be building up its security forces in the east. It comes in response to protests there, calling for more rights for Shias. New video posted on a social media website appears to show a protest in Qatif on Friday. A report in the Independent newspaper says up to 10,000 extra troops are being sent to the region. Afghan President Hamid Karzai has rejected a U.S. apology for the killing of 9 Afghan boys in a NATO airstrike last week. It comes as hundreds of protesters took to the streets of Kabul to demonstrate against U.S. military operations in the country. Those are the headlines. I'll be back with more news at the top of the hour. Don't go away.
Thousands of Egyptian protesters stormed the headquarters of the State Security Service and demand the organization be abolished. The agency is accused of widespread human rights abuses and torturing its own citizens. So why is the security apparatus so feared and hated? And what role could it play in the new post-revolution Egypt? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to the programme. I'm Darren Jordan. 3 weeks after President Hosni Mubarak's ousting, Egyptians are turning their anger towards his internal security apparatus, storming the agency's main headquarters and seizing documents to help build a case that the service was used as a tool of torture and abuse against ordinary Egyptians. The protesters are demanding the agency be dismantled and its leaders face justice. Aman Mohyeddin has more.
Outside the gates of the sprawling state security compound in Cairo, Egyptian soldiers stand guard. This fortified complex was home to the country's most notorious security apparatus. But in the new Egypt, even its ironclad doors were not enough to keep protesters from overtaking the compound on Saturday evening. Inside, protesters found documents, police records, underground rooms, and even a passageway that led to a secret living quarter they claimed was used by the powerful Minister of Interior, now standing trial. They also found bags of shredded documents. With the recent departure of the Mubarak-appointed Prime Minister Ahmed Shafiq, protesters feared that state security officials would destroy all evidence that could implicate them. After protesters stormed this massive state security compound behind me, Egypt's new prime minister asked anyone with incriminating evidence or documents to hand them over to the military so that they can be used in the prosecution of former regime officials. Documents like these obtained by Isra Abdel Fattah, who was detained by state security twice for her political activism, show how state security was spying on her, even hacking into her email accounts to find out which organizations she was involved in and who she was in regular contact with.
These records show they were extremely paranoid from us. Every piece of information that for us seemed insignificant would be significant for them. They were convinced that there must have been some international organization behind my activities.
That sense of paranoia led state security to act